Someone right now is sitting in their garage, staring at a half-built contraption of neodymium magnets and aluminum cylinders, wondering why the thing won't spin longer than 11 seconds. They've spent $400 on rare earth magnets, another $200 on precision bearings, maybe $80 on plans they downloaded from a website that looked just credible enough, and the electricity bill sitting on their kitchen counter still says $187, same as last month, same as the month before that. That question isn't whether magnets can push and pull without fuel. Of course they can. You felt it as a kid, two magnets snapping together in your palm. The question is whether wanting something to work has ever, in the entire history of money and physics, made it work. Because the story of magnetic motors isn't really a story about magnets. It's a story about what happens when people confuse possibility with probability, and then confuse probability with certainty, and then hand over their credit card. But it's not a bet. A bet implies known odds. This is something worse. This is a purchase made inside a fantasy, and the fantasy was designed, whether by a well-meaning tinkerer or a deliberate grifter, to bypass exactly the part of your brain that protects your wallet. The part that says, wait, show me the meter running for a month, not 10 seconds. Show me the electric company confirming zero draw. Show me one independently verified installation powering a household through a winter. Nobody can show you that. Not one person on this planet. Not in a garage, not in a lab, not in a government facility. And the reason isn't conspiracy. It isn't suppression by big energy. It isn't that the breakthrough is just around the corner and the powers that be are scared. The reason is something far more uncomfortable for anyone who's already spent money or emotional energy on this dream. The reason is that the universe itself has a rule, older than any corporation, older than any government, older than the concept of electricity bills altogether. And that rule doesn't care how badly you need your energy to be free. It doesn't care how clever your magnet arrangement looks. It doesn't negotiate, and it doesn't make exceptions for people who really, truly believe. That rule is the thing standing between you and the $0 bill. And until you understand exactly what it says and why no arrangement of magnets on a spinning wheel can ever get around it, you will keep being vulnerable to the next video, the next kit, the next too-good-to-be-true device that asks for your money in exchange for a physics miracle that cannot arrive. Let's talk about what actually happens to your wallet while that rotor is spinning down to zero, because the physics isn't the cruelest part of this story. The math is. A typical American household burns through about 2,500 kilowatt hours of electricity per year. At the national average of roughly 16 cents per kilowatt hour, that's around $1,400, annually walking out your door and into the utility company's pocket. Painful, sure. But here's the number nobody in those YouTube comment sections wants to confront. The strongest neodymium magnets commercially available, the N52 grade monsters, produce a pull force of maybe a few hundred pounds per unit. Sounds impressive until you calculate the actual energy density. A single N52 magnet, the size of your thumb, stores about 40 joules of magnetic potential energy. Your house, running the fridge, the lights, the AC, demands roughly 1/200 watts continuously. That means you'd burn through that magnet's entire stored potential in a fraction of a second. Not a fraction of a minute, a fraction of a second. The mismatch isn't a gap, it's a canyon measured in orders of magnitude. Now zoom out to the financial carnage, scroll through any forum dedicated to these builds, and you'll find the receipts. Rare earth magnets alone run between $50 and $300 per piece, depending on size and grade. A serious builder, someone genuinely trying to construct a device powerful enough to offset even a portion of their electric bill, easily drops $2,000 to $5,000 on magnets, bearings, custom machined housings, copper wire for the generator coils. One commenter in this very video's thread described how purchasing parts and machines for his magnetic drive already bankrupted him, and he still needs 2 more components, plus fabrication for the frame and casing. His electricity bill didn't pause while he was shopping. Run that against the alternative. A $1,400 annual electric bill means you'd need your magnetic motor investment to produce a full return within 2 to 4 years, just to break even with doing absolutely nothing. But the device produces 0 usable kilowatt hours. 0. So your real rate of return isn't negative 5% or negative 20%. It's negative 100% of every dollar committed. You'd get a better financial outcome lighting the cash on fire, because at least fire produces measurable thermal energy, and the timing is never random. Every single spike in energy prices triggers a fresh wave of searches, fresh diagrams, fresh viral videos pulling millions of views. When electricity costs jumped last year, the search volume for magnetic generators surged in lockstep. That's not coincidence. That's a market responding to pain, and opportunists responding to that market. The people selling plans at $49 or $99 a pop don't need the motor to work. They just need your frustration to peak at the same moment their ad appears. They're not energy engineers. They're conversion rate optimizers, feeding on the exact month your utility bill hit a personal record. So here's the ledger laid bare. On one side, you have a guaranteed annual cost of $1,400 you're already paying and will keep paying regardless. On the other side, you have an additional $2,000 to $5,000 outlay that returns precisely nothing, attached to a device that violates the same thermodynamic constraints, whether it's built from cheap ferrit or the most expensive rare earth elements money can buy. The magnets don't care how much you spent. Friction doesn't negotiate. Electrical resistance doesn't offer loyalty discounts. Every joule still gets counted, every spin still decays, and your bank account is lighter on both ends of the equation. That's the real machine at work here, not a perpetual motion engine. A perpetual extraction engine, one that converts financial desperation into someone else's revenue with mechanical precision. And the fuel it runs on isn't magnetism. It's the gap between what your bills cost and what you wish they cost, a gap wide enough to swallow savings accounts whole, which raises a harder question. If the numbers are this unforgiving, why does the dream keep regenerating faster than any rotor ever could? Here's what nobody talks about when the demonstration fails and the lights go dark. The investors don't get refunds. The people who wired money to Storn in 2007, who bought into Orbo because a confident man in a suit said the words, "more energy out than in," those people ate the loss. Not the company, not the media outlets that ran the story, not the platform that hosted the fundraising page. The believers absorbed the cost, and everyone upstream kept what they earned. That right there is the value chain you need to see clearly, because it repeats everywhere, not just in magnetic motors, but in every system that sells effort as the missing ingredient to freedom. Think about what actually happened with Steorn. A company claimed a revolutionary device. Media covered it because controversy drives clicks. Investors poured in because the pitch sounded like liberation from monthly bills. When the machine sat dead on stage, the media still got paid for the coverage. The company had already collected funds. The only party left holding nothing was the person at the bottom, the one who believed hard work and a little faith could change the physics of their bank account. That is not an accident. That is architecture. This is the ownership logic hiding behind the effort narrative. The story says anyone with enough creativity and determination could unlock unlimited energy. It frames the problem as a puzzle that rewards persistence. But persistence is labor, and labor without ownership is just fuel for someone else's engine. The guy in his garage, spending weekends on magnets and rotors, is performing effort. The guy selling him neodymium discs on a marketplace is collecting margin. One is grinding, the other is clipping a toll. And the grinder never notices because the story keeps telling him he is one breakthrough away from flipping the script. Johann Bessler attracted kings and scientists in the 1700s. Crowds gathered. Money changed hands. When the trick was exposed, Bessler had already lived off patronage for years. The audience funded the show. The showman owned the stage. 3 centuries later, the mechanics are identical, just digitized. A YouTube thumbnail replaces the town square demonstration. A Patreon link replaces the king's purse. The structure of extraction has not evolved because it does not need to. It works perfectly as long as one group believes effort is the bottleneck and another group quietly owns the toll booth. Look at the language these pitches always use. David versus Goliath. Lone genius versus the system. That framing is not motivational. It is a pricing strategy. It tells you the product is rebellion itself, and rebellion feels priceless, so you stop calculating cost versus return. You stop asking who keeps the money if the wheel stops. You stop noticing that the person warning you about big energy suppression is also, coincidentally, selling you a $40 PDF. The suspicion of power gets weaponized into a funnel that extracts from the suspicious. Real energy breakthroughs, solar panels getting cheaper, batteries getting denser. Those happened because companies owned patents, manufacturing lines, distribution networks. The gains flowed to asset holders. Consumers benefited too, but only after the ownership layer took its cut. Magnetic motor dreams skip that entire reality. They promise you can jump straight from effort to freedom without ever owning anything structural. And that is precisely why the dream keeps regenerating faster than any rotor ever could. So here is the one thing you can actually do, and I warn you, it is going to sound painfully boring. But boring is the point. Boring is the antidote to the dopamine rush that makes your hand reach for the credit card at 2 a.m. when some slick website is promising you a $0 electricity bill forever. Next time you feel that pull, that little spark of hope when you see a magnetic generator kit, a secret PDF, a pre-built unit with glowing testimonials and plausible-looking diagrams, do not argue with yourself about whether it works. Do not try to debunk it in your head. Do not even close the tab. Instead, open the Notes app on your phone and type one sentence. Just one. Write down the exact dollar amount you are about to spend, and then write the words, independent verified test result next to it. That is the entire action. You set a 10-minute timer and you search for that one thing, a test result from someone who has no financial stake in selling you the device. A university lab, a credible engineering journal, an independent energy auditor, anyone whose income does not depend on you clicking add to cart. If 10 minutes pass and you cannot find that single piece of evidence, you close the browser. You do not bookmark it for later. You do not tell yourself you will come back when you have more time to research. You just close it. The money stays in your account. The magnets stay in someone else's warehouse. Now, why does something this small actually work? Because the entire machine that separates you from your cash depends on one specific moment, the gap between excitement and action. That gap is usually about 90 seconds. 90 seconds, where your brain is flooded with possibility, where the testimonials feel real, where the diagrams look just technical enough to be convincing, where you can almost feel the relief of never opening another utility bill again. The 10-minute rule does not require you to be smarter than the scam. It does not require you to understand thermodynamics or magnetic flux density or the second law of entropy. It just requires you to be slower than the scam. That is all. Slower by 10 minutes. And here's what happens in those 10 minutes every single time. You start searching and you notice something. The testimonials never link to anything verifiable. The diagrams never come with measurement data. The demonstrations never show a watt meter connected to an independent load over a sustained period. You do not need a physics degree to notice the absence. You just need the pause. The mechanical, boring, unsexy pause. Think about the people in those comment sections. The ones who spent $300 on a kit that arrived as a box of loose magnets and copper wire with a photocopied instruction sheet. The ones who spent $800 on a pre-built unit that spun for 40 seconds and then stopped. Every single one of them skipped this step, not because they were stupid, because they were fast. Because hope moves faster than skepticism, and the sellers know it. They design every element of the sales page to compress that gap between excitement and purchase into the smallest possible window. Your only job is to stretch that window back open. 10 minutes. One search, one sentence in your notes app. That is the entire system. No grand strategy about energy independence, no lecture about physics, just a speed bump between your emotions and your wallet. The next time that familiar feeling rises, that craving for a miracle solution when the utility bill arrives, or when gas prices spike, or when someone shares a video of a wheel that seems to spin forever, you do not need to be an expert. You just need to be 10 minutes slower than the person selling it to you. And if you do find a verified independent test result in those 10 minutes, genuinely, sincerely, I want you to send it to me, because that would change everything. But in the hundreds of kits, PDFs, and pre-built units currently for sale across the internet right now, not one of them can produce that single piece of paper. Not one, which tells you everything about who the real engine of this industry actually is. Here is the part nobody wants to hear. And I get it, because it sounds like defeat dressed up as advice. You will not eliminate your energy bill overnight. You will not eliminate your debt overnight. You will not find a single device, a single investment, a single viral trick that collapses years of compounding costs into one glorious zero. That fantasy is the exact same engine that sells magnetic motor kits to desperate people at 2 a.m. And the financial version of that engine is far more sophisticated, far better funded, and far more patient than you are. But here is what I can actually promise you, and it is the only honest promise worth making. You always have the right to stop. You can close the brokerage app. You can unsubscribe from the newsletter charging you $49 a month for signals that perform worse than a coin flip. You can walk away from the table at any point and nothing collapses. The market does not care. Your electricity still runs, your life continues. That exit door never locks from the inside, no matter what any guru or algorithm tells you. Now, the survival buffer. Think of it like this. A man in the comments section spent years and his entire savings trying to build a machine that would generate free power forever. He went broke buying parts and tools for a device that, by every known law of physics, cannot do what he needs it to do. His frustration with the electric company was real. His bills were real. But his solution was a fantasy, and the cost of chasing that fantasy was everything he had. The financial equivalent is the person who throws their emergency fund into a leveraged trade because they are tired of watching their savings grow at 2% a year. Both people wanted a revolution. What they needed was a cushion. Your cushion is not exciting. It is 3 months of expenses sitting in something so boring you forget it exists. It is the difference between a setback and a catastrophe. It is the thing that lets you say no to the next miracle pitch because you're not desperate enough to believe it. Real progress in your energy costs looks like a solar panel price that drops 5% a year, every year for a decade. Real progress in your financial life looks almost identical. A small automatic transfer, a fee you cancel, a subscription you finally audit. None of these will go viral. None of these will get millions of clicks. But compounded over 5 years, 10 years, they quietly reshape the ground beneath your feet in ways that no single dramatic bet ever could. So, when the next zero-cost promise circles back around, and it will, because it always does, you do not need to be cynical. You just need to be slow. Ask for independent proof. Ask who profits from your excitement. Ask whether the person selling the dream has any skin in the outcome besides your attention. That is not negativity. That is the cheapest insurance policy you will ever own. I'm not here to make you rich. I'm here to make sure the machinery designed to grind through your patience and your wallet finds you a little harder to catch. Sometimes that means sitting still while everyone else chases a headline. Sometimes that means being the boring one at the party. And sometimes boring is the only thing standing between you and a bill you cannot pay.